Powered by Riverside.
Welcome back to the Dad Jokes and Discernment podcast, the faith-based podcast that tries to examine life struggles with a biblical lens and a little dash of humor on the side. I'm one of your hosts, Dustin.
I'm Dustin also.
It gets confusing. Stick around. You'll figure it out. Last week we talked about forgiveness of ourselves, how God forgives us, and how we need to turn that around and forgive others. And we're going to stick in that fashion of doing for others this week and transition into serving others and how we can use that to not only will we receive blessings from that, but of course there's the blessing that goes from helping others that they receive also.
Well, that's exactly right. And I think you brought it up, and I immediately felt it in my bones that it was the right thing to do. And I'm going to try not to make her uncomfortable right now, but we have a very, very special guest today.
We do.
For our first guest. And when you suggested it, and I can't even talk. I mean, come on.
You're so excited.
I'm so fired up right now. And you hit me with these verses, and you were like, these embody her. I'm like, absolutely. So I want to share real quick what I asked her, and then we'll introduce her and tell you a little bit, and she'll take off, and then we'll read these verses, and we'll get going. How's that sound?
Sounds good. Let's get to it.
So I messaged Haley. We'll just call her Haley. That could be an alias. It could be not. I don't know. You decide. But I messaged her, and I said, hey, would you be interested in being our first official guest on the podcast? We'd mainly like to hear about your inspiration to start this school, which you'll learn about here in just a second. What all has it entailed? What does the future hold with it, in your opinion? But also, if you're willing, maybe some testimony on what it's like to be a pastor's wife, all while raising 4 kids. We basically want to interview a superhero, and that is just the God's honest truth. Do you want to? Let's read those verses. What do you say?
Yeah, absolutely. The first 2 verses comes from 1 Peter chapter 4, verses 9 and 10. Be hospitable to one another without grumbling. As each one has received a gift, minister it to one another as good stewards of the manifold grace of God. When I read that in context of having a servant's heart or being a servant unto others, it's a heavy burden because you're constantly pouring into others, and very rarely do you take time to pour into yourself. But at the end of the day, those people that are servants, even those that aren't in a visible leadership position, they are going to be blessed beyond measure when it's all said and done and we're standing in glory.
Right. Absolutely. The next set of verses are Galatians 5:13 and 14. For brethren, ye have been called unto liberty. Only use not liberty for an occasion to the flesh, but by love serve one another. For all the law is fulfilled in one word, even in this, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. You know, man, when you sent me these, I was like, yes, this embodies Haley. But not only her, so many of the other godly women in our church too.
Absolutely.
We are blessed beyond belief, our wives included. When you look up biblical references to the wife and the mother, there is some of the finest examples, I think, in the world right here at HBC. And we wanted to have Haley come on and talk a little bit about starting a private school and what all that's entailed, all while being the pastor's wife. And we could talk for a little bit, I guess, about the pastor. I mean, he's an okay guy. You know, y'all will meet him soon, very soon. So we thought it was kind of funny to have Haley come on before him, just to kind of take a little dig at him.
I don't think I've ever seen anybody so fired up to get on and sit and talk with a couple of dudes who are just kind of muddling their way through this.
He is ready.
He is amped, man, and I love it. I love to see it.
Man, and he doesn't want to just come on one time. I think he's got a plan. He's probably going to end up being a regular guest.
I'm here for it.
I am totally here for it.
The more guests we have, the less we have to figure out on our own.
But without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, Miss Haley.
Thanks, guys, for having me. First of all, I'm not a superhero, but I appreciate your kind words, and I'm super excited to be here today.
Awesome.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah, absolutely. Very glad to have you. And I'll speak from my experience when my family and I first came to the church. You guys were very welcoming, and we really appreciate that.
Yes.
So we know who you are now. Tell us a little bit about your testimony. And I know everybody's chomping to get to this school thing, but we'll put a pin in that for just a few more questions.
So I think that like y'all talked about last week, I grew up in church. I was at church as a baby, and I always went to church. That's just what you did. I do come from a broken home, and I had to, as a child, go through my parents being divorced and the challenges that brings. And that was very, very hard on me. So as a child, I developed some, I guess you would say, mental health issues. I became OCD, and I had a lot of anxiety. And those were challenges that I had to overcome. And as I got a little bit older, I really started to understand that, like, God is where I have to lean into. And that's what I've got to rely on, because even though my world is shifting, He's the one thing that stays constant. And so that's kind of what I did. But also, as a young adult, I made it my mission that my children would not go through what I went through.
Amen.
And so from that moment, as I was probably in high school at that time, I was set out on a different journey. I did not look like my peers in that way. I did not act like my peers in that way. Not because I was better than them, but because I had lived something that I wanted to make sure did not repeat itself.
Absolutely.
And so that's kind of what I did. But another big part of my testimony that's important for y'all to know is that while I dealt with all of these issues of anxiety and OCDness and just very unsure of myself, my stepdad came into the picture, and he was one of the best things that ever happened to me. He showed me, what to look for in marriage, and showed me how to treat my children, and different aspects like that. And he was just like top-notch guy. And whenever he came into the picture, a lot of those issues that I had just seemed to kind of melt away. And so I so believe that God brought him into my life for a reason and for a purpose. However, my time with him was super short. When I was in high school, he was diagnosed with cancer. It was supposed to be a super curable cancer. If you're going to have one, this is the one to have. However, as a high school student, he died. And so it was like the cycle was being repeated again. The way life felt like it should be, and the comfort in that was kind of ripped out from underneath me. And I had to, once again, rely on God and lean into Him, which has kind of been the theme of my whole life. As we continue to go through life, that's just kind of what it looked like. I did meet my husband in high school. I told y'all that I had set out on a different journey, and I was going to do things very differently. And so there was a lot of pursuing on his part, because I didn't know that he quite met the mark. But God had different plans. And
it's good to have high standards.
Yeah, I had very high standards, and he had to come up to those standards to be accepted. And so that's kind of how we got to where we were. When you talk to him, he may kind of tell you a little bit different story. But he was not the picture that I had in my head. He didn't live in the way I thought that this was going. But God is so cool, because He worked it out that here we are as a pastor and a pastor's wife. And if you went back and asked teachers or whoever back then, they would have probably never seen that coming. In fact, a lot of them weren't so sure about me dating him. So I really had to be like, well, he's really changed a lot in order to make that okay with everybody. But that's kind of how it was a lot of God to get from there to where we are now and the way that we're getting to serve. But it really is the things that have happened to me as a person that has made me who I am today, and has given me that desire, I guess, to serve and to give back, because God has been so good to me, and He has been so faithful that even through all of the bad stuff, He was still there. And so what else would I do but to get back to Him?
Amen. How old were you and Jordan when y'all started dating?
So I was a junior and he was a senior. Yep, it was the FFA trip that that put us together. We had classes together. He just never noticed me until the FFA trip. But we credit FFA.
It's kind of crazy to look back and see God's hand and how those things worked, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I met my wife in drama club.
Okay.
As a result, in high school. So yeah, thank goodness for stepping out of that comfort zone and getting into an extracurricular that I had no interest in. I was not coming up. I was not the athletic kid. I
thought you had a flair for the dramatic. Did you not?
A little bit, as it turns out. No, I was not really interested in a lot of things based on my childhood, and I really just kind of wanted to be by myself quite a bit. And I caught the first play that they did, which was The Hobbit. Met my wife, and 15 something years later, here we are. She'll kill me if she listens to this, and I don't know the exact date, but if you don't have a third episode, you know what happened. You had talked about, you used the phrase "the pastor's wife," and I want to dig into that a little bit, because there is a stereotype in a lot of churches about the pastor's wife that she is just supposed to be the pastor's right hand, for lack of a better word. And how do you feel about that preconceived notion versus someone who is blessed with a servant's heart that we talked about, and someone who is just kind of forced into that role, but doesn't necessarily want to fulfill all of those social obligations or social expectations? But what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I did not grow up thinking I would be a pastor's wife. I was going to serve the Lord because he had done so much for me, but being a pastor's wife was not really in my playing cards. In fact, I had great plans that I was going to be a woman engineer, and they make lots of money, and I could do that, and I liked that kind of thing. And I went one semester to school and realized real quick that Jordan at the time, he had already started preaching and really going down that, he knew he had been called to preach. And it became very clear to me that I wasn't going to be able to do that career path and be a pastor's wife. So God laid it on my heart, was like, I know you said you were going to be an engineer, but actually you're going to go get a nonprofit degree. And people thought I was crazy, because they were like, you're going to give up engineering to get a nonprofit degree. You're not going to make any money. And I was like, well, I'm not in it for the money, I guess.
Absolutely.
But I truly believe that when God puts you in something and he puts a call on your life, he makes it all work out. And that's exactly what he did. He knew where I needed to be and what I needed to do. And he knew that this would be the journey that we would go down. Ironically, I'm not a people person. I was not a people person. I'm super introverted. I still can be. But over the years, I've had to learn to deal with the people and be with the people. And I love the people. I just don't want the spotlight, and I don't want to be, front and center. So it's very ironic, but absolutely a God thing that we've gotten here. I truly feel, though, that as ministry partners, we've seen other ministry partners, and it has to be a partnership. It can't just be him and not me. We both have to be all in for it to work. There have been a lot of ministry partners that we've seen where one is all in and the other isn't, and it just will not work. Right. Because when we said our vows, we agreed to do this life together. And so he was called to pastor. I accepted that call to be his pastor's wife, and I'm going to do it the best that I can. So I don't feel it as an obligation. There are times, sure, when I get asked 20,000 questions or whatever, but it's just it's just what I do. I wouldn't want it any other way.
I want to share this. I was sitting here looking for another verse, and I come across this. We're going to dive into some more in a second about the school and what it's like to raise 4 kids. Mm-hmm. We've already started talking about the weight of being a pastor's wife. Okay, 2 Corinthians 10:14. For we stretch not ourselves beyond our measure, as though we reach not unto you. For we are come as far as you also in preaching the gospel of Christ, not boasting of things without our measure, that is, of other men's labors, but having hope when your faith is increased, that we shall be enlarged by you according to our rule abundantly, to preach the gospel in the regions beyond you, and not to boast in another man's line of things made ready to our hand. I was sitting here, that just popped up. I was like, that's your whole goal with the school, is to spread the gospel for the next generation. That's our goal here with this podcast, is to spread the gospel worldwide. We talked a little bit about it before we started, and I know your mindset will be the same with the school. Mine and Dustin's whole thing when we started talking about this, I don't think we talked about it last week, is if this endeavor reaches just one person, just one, then it is all worth it. And I find it no coincidence that my Sunday school lessons have been lining up with Jordan's sermons. I find it no coincidence that Jordan hammered on the phrase just one today in church. I mean, it is, I'm sitting there like, I'm pulling out my Sunday school notes, and it's like I'm showing Christy, I'm like, look, I'm looking back at you and in church, like, are you paying attention?
Definitely.
The Lord is working,
He absolutely is. And there's not, I won't say there's not a day that goes by, but the constant thoughts of what we're doing here and our goals, obviously we want to spread the gospel and share the word to people that are lost and hurting,
right,
and hope that they can experience the gift of salvation the way that we have. But I'll also go so far as to say I'll settle for just taking a hurting person and help them not hurt anymore.
Amen.
That's it's our job to plant seeds, and God will come back and harvest it later in His time.
It's His job to bring the increase.
But yeah, just one. I'm patiently waiting for the day I get that message that says, "Hey, this helped me out a lot." That's gonna.
Right.
I'm gonna print that off and frame it and put it on the wall or something. But
His will, man, His will. But like I said, I'm sure your mindset's the same with the school. You're fostering these young people there. You're pouring. You and the other lovely teachers are going to be pouring into these children. And is it safe to say that if just one child is saved at some point, that they realize the weight of their sin, that we all have it, and that there's only one Redeemer for that? I mean, if that happens, all of the work that you've put into this is going to be worth it, because I'm sure it's been stressful, right?
Absolutely.
Do you want to talk a little bit about?
Yeah, let's get into the school.
Let's get into this. Let's get into the school.
We have arrived.
What has the red tape look like statewide? What attacks have been thrown at you? Because when you're working for the Lord and you're making waves in the spiritual world, I mean, there's going to be attacks.
Right. It's going to come, and it absolutely has come. I will tell you that when you know that you're in the will of God, He always sends you a reminder that these attacks are coming, but I've made you a promise. And so that's what I've clung to through this. When there's a little roadblock or a hurdle, it's here, it's in front of us, we're going to have to tackle it. But God said this was going to happen, and so it's going to happen. And so that is what I've clung to. What you have to remember when we're talking about the school is there is nothing like it in our area. So this is a hybrid homeschool, meaning that schooling happens at home and it also happens in the school setting, because what we're trying to build here is an atmosphere that isn't offered in this area, because there are students who need that. There are students who need to be in a building, but it doesn't need to look like you sit in your desk for 8 hours a day and you do the work and you leave. And as a mom, I knew that there had to be something more for my kids. My kids went to a great school, but as I sat back and watched them actually worked at their school, so I had a front row view. As I sat there and watched them, I knew that they were brilliant kids and they were great kids and they were loved by their teachers and by their friends. But there was just something missing. And I was like, it should not be this hard. Like, it shouldn't be this hard for them to go to school and to learn and to grow. And while they had such great people pouring into them, something wasn't right. And I explored options of like, what will this look like? And I had some great people there that were willing, my own principal was willing to talk to me about that and like, what does this look like for you and your family? Because my goal is to make them successful, right? So God laid it on my heart. For a long time, I'd had this thought of like an after-school program. I have a nonprofit degree. I went back and got a teaching degree, but was like, why don't we have like an after-school program? Even here at the church, like the kids come and we do this. But it just never really came to be. And then it was laid on my heart, like, what if I just open up a school? And
That's a pretty wild thought.
It is kind of
crazy.
It sounds a little crazier coming out. But in my head, I knew what I needed for my own kids. I knew what I needed for students as a teacher who had taught in the school. And I felt like there wasn't anything that allowed that to happen in our area. So while if you travel a couple of hours, you may find schools like this, but in this area there is nothing like it. And so we really had to start from the ground up, and that in itself was a lot of hurdles. Obviously there's
Like, where do you begin to look for information on how to do this?
Right, how do we do this? And so you start with the laws, like what are the laws, like what do I have to do, and what can I not do? But that is truly, because there's nothing like it in this area, that has been the biggest hurdle, because nobody knows what to do with us. Like, how do you categorize us, or what do we make you follow and what do we not make you follow? That's probably been our biggest hurdle. So we set our standards high, and we say, we're going to cover the highest level that we have to, so that way we're covered. Do we probably have to do all of that stuff? No. But if we can prove that we can do this, then we know that we can do the rest of it. But just getting people to understand like what we are and what we're doing has been super difficult. And not having the resources to just call somebody and say, how do I do this? Because it looks so different in different places. But I truly feel like there's a movement to a different way for kids. It all comes back to the heart is, I knew my own kids needed to thrive in a school setting, and I know that there are other kids like them. And that has been proven time and time again with the families that have reached out to us, which is super duper cool, because it's just another reminder that God has me right where He wants me, and He's got a work in place, even if it's for one. Like, if we provide a better place for one kid, then that's all that matters.
Just one.
Yeah, just one.
The resurgence of homeschooling has taken this country by storm. We've homeschooled our kids since the beginning. Our oldest did preschool for a year, but that was it. And we knew we wanted to homeschool. It has taken off. Just in our little town alone, the co-op has seen, exponential growth over the last several years of how many kids are coming. And there's reasons for that. We don't have to dive off into that now, we live in a smaller country town of sorts. We don't see near the same amount of, I guess you would just call them issues that bigger city schools encounter, the controversial things, We see them enough, though. Enough to, I don't know. I'm going to say this. We might receive some mail on this, but I really don't care. A very dear pastor friend of mine, one of my best friends, he told me one time, he said, why would you send your kids to Caesar for their education and then wonder why they come home as little Romans? And I said, wow, that's right.
So I feel like this is a lot of people probably did not agree when I said I'm quitting my job and this is what I'm doing, because there is absolutely this big divide of like public school, private school, and homeschool, right?
Right.
And I'm not against public school.
No, I'm not. I worked at a fabulous one, and I still think it's fabulous. And if this isn't what God put on my heart, that's where I would still be, and that's where my kids would be. And that's what made it so hard for me to say, I've got to do something different, because I loved it so much. But when God calls you to something, I've learned that He will make you uncomfortable where you're at to ensure that you get to where he needs you to go. And I could not shake it. And I was like, if I don't do this, I'm not in his will.
It was just a calling.
Yeah, it was a calling, and it's just what I had to do.
And I want to clarify again one more time just to try to mitigate the male. We have some great local schools here where we're at. I'm not dogging on them a bit.
And it's not the teachers. There are laws from high up that tell us how this has to work, and they're doing the very best that they can.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, I knew that wasn't what was the best for my children, and so God said, "This is where you're going."
I love that. Have you got any kickback from the state and any kind of well, you better do this, you better do that?
So again, that's kind of where probably most of our issues have come from. More so because they don't there's not a lot of rules for homeschooling in this state.
Definitely not.
So it makes it very wide range. So we are a hybrid homeschool. All they hear is school, and they expect us to follow all the rules of a school. We are a nonprofit, and so it just makes everything a little bit tricky. And that's where, as far as inspections and stuff, we're just going to meet the highest level so that there's no room for question, even though we're just kind of like a fancy co-op. That has probably been the trickiest thing.
There is a lot of stuff open for interpretation when you get into state laws and you start reading those guidelines. And I know we said we wouldn't get too political, but I want laws to be plain language. I just wish things were a lot more easier understood by the general public. And in order to do that, one of two things has to happen. We either have to raise our reading and comprehension levels exponentially or decrease the difficulty of what we're being taught. And one of the downsides to that is that if you write something in a way that the average person can't comprehend it, they don't really have much of a choice but to trust you in what you're saying.
Amen.
And as somebody that works for public-facing department of the government, it's difficult to help them navigate and learn to understand why they can or can't do things, and that people have such a difficult time understanding what's being said and what's being taught to them, and 1,000-page bills of things that are just completely irrelevant to the issue that got raised initially. And
you know what I do now? I just upload, if I don't understand something, I just upload it to ChatGPT and tell it to break it down for me. What's this mean?
Man, that's
upload an X-ray. What's going on here? It's terrible.
Such a good and a bad thing at the same time with ChatGPT and the way that people are using it, because we're not retaining information when we do that. You can learn it.
The way I use it, I love it.
You have to be willing to sit down and learn it, though. That falls back on the individual. And when you look at children in school who say, "Hey, Chat, I need a 5-page essay on the Roman civilization," and it spits it out in 30 seconds, and then they turn around and turn it in, they have no idea what they wrote. And the general lack of understanding on how AI really works and how it gives you the answers once you put in your prompts.
How many doctors are going to graduate from med school and not really know how to be a doctor?
Exactly.
It's terrifying. And that's part of why I love what Haley and the crew's doing so much.
Yes.
They're not just going to be teaching them how to take a test.
Not many tests for where we're going.
But I felt like that, when we went to school together, we touched on that last week. Haley, I think she went to the same school. It's like testing is just a huge deal nowadays. I don't remember what I took tests on.
But
leave it in.
The biggest issue that I had with my kids in school was not necessarily what they were learning. I never had a problem curriculum-wise, because I believe that the school is there to educate, but it's my job as a parent to help them understand and reinforce what they're being educated on. I feel like I've done an okay job with that. My biggest issue with school was my son's behaviors. And, when I was growing up, the kids that, if you knew of a kid that had ADHD, they were a quote-unquote bad kid. They were the kid that was flipping your desks and kicking teachers and being put in alternate
all that red dye.
classrooms. We did. We went through some difficult years with him. He was in 4th grade, I think, when COVID hit, and we tried homeschool for half a year. We got to fractions, and I lost my mind and said, "You're going back to school. This is I cannot teach you what you need to know." You know,
And
but
thank God for my wife. She's the rock star. I couldn't do it either, brother. I'm with you.
and he's not the kind of kid that distracts because he's mad or frustrated. He distracts because he's bored. You know, the teacher has lost his interest, but she's also got, 25, 30 other kids that she has to teach. And so my issue with public school has become I'm going to call it the big box store model of one size fits all. And it used to be when I was growing up and coming through schools.
We've been at a high school 20 years.
No, sir. I graduated in 2026. Excuse me. I graduated in 2006. It's not 20 years yet, so just pump your brakes a little bit.
19.
One whole year.
Got a whole year left. I'm gonna savor every moment of it. I won't get invited to that school reunion either. The a little salty. I didn't get invited to the 10-year. No, they.
I didn't even go.
I probably wouldn't have, but it would have been nice to have been, invited. But anyway. The box store model of schooling, where it used to be that the kid that needed the attention and displayed that they needed the attention got that extra attention, and now that kid that needs that extra attention is pushed aside. Look, if your kid is on the AB honor roll, they may not be going to med school, but your kid probably doesn't need the extra attention that the other child needs. And
right. I would like to see schools get to where they foster the gifts of certain children.
Yes.
If a kid leans this way and he's better with his hands, let's get him over in the vocational side of things.
Absolutely.
Quicker. And which in modern and in today's world, I mean, the vocations are where it's at. I mean, you can come out of a vocational school, college, 2-year degree, be knocking down 6 figures. I mean, electricians can go out and write their own check.
Truthfully.
But you can go to a 4-year university and come out and make $40,000 a year.
Thanks for painting a sad picture of my life.
Mine as well.
No, I enjoyed what I went to school for.
I mean, there's a place for it.
Right.
I'm just saying, I would love to see the schools.
I would love to see the schools look at each child and evaluate them and
That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. Yep.
Teach them based on what they bring to the table instead of forcing them to conform to a certain ideal or a certain set of checkboxes on a piece of paper. I'm not super duper knowledgeable, and I'm trying to tread cautiously, because Miss Haley over here is going to completely obliterate all my views here in a second with her knowledge of having worked in the school. I first heard about this through a Facebook post that you guys had made, and even sent you a couple of emails asking about some things, because I was also a little worried about how much religious content would be taught. That goes right back to what I said a while ago about it being the parent's job to teach certain things. And I see the benefits of it, and I'm curious as to how that's going to work in the school. But how does teaching the kids to be upright factor into your curriculum?
Right. So I think it's important to remember that we are not a classical Christian school. We have those in our community, and that is not what we are. They are great for what they are, but that is not the environment that we are trying to foster. Whenever I decided, we are going to do this, I felt very strongly that I did not want this school to be a church school, just because I felt like we were supposed to have something different. So when I put the board together, I made sure that I looked at different denominations, and really our whole goal is just to provide a place for children to thrive. That's the goal. So it didn't matter that it was this denomination or this denomination, but we could all come together and say, we love this community, we can see the benefit in a school like this, and we can work towards that. So there are biblical truths sprinkled throughout our school and throughout our curriculum. That is not the whole. That is our foundation that we stand on, but that is not everything that we do. It is really about exactly what y'all were just talking about. It's about allowing kids a space to grow into who they were meant to be, to find the things that they enjoy, to work with their hands, to know that they don't have to conform to sitting in a seat this certain way all day long. We're going to be up, we're going to be moving, we're going to be inside, we're going to be outside. Academics are absolutely important. They have to know how to read and write and do math.
Can't have AI for everything.
Right. You got to know some of those things. But taking those skills and putting them in a more life applicable format, if you will, so that they can know these things not to perform on a test, but know these things so they can perform in life.
I like that, not being able to perform on a test, but being able to perform in life. That's
I was an awful test taker. I was a straight A student. I hated tests, so no test ever really showed what I knew.
Right, and that goes back to that prescribed big box model. We base your competencies off your testing at the end of the year, and if you are a terrible test taker, you get test anxiety, you freeze up when those things happen. It is what it is.
Right, and that does not really define the student or the teacher. That's just what we're being made to believe.
Very interesting.
I had some pre-written questions, and I've kind of exhausted those at this point. I'm looking to see if I've covered everything I wanted to.
While you're looking at that, I think what you just touched on clears up a lot of questions people had. Is this school tied to the church? Is this a church school? Is it tied to our church?
Right.
No,
not at all. And I have to tell people that all the time.
It just happens to be the pastor's wife, and using her knowledge and skill set and what's been laid on her heart to do personally. Right.
Our goal is that other churches in our community and other community businesses will get behind and support this, because it is a community. It's a community thing. It's not tied to one person or one thing or one church.
I love that.
I do, yeah. I think obviously if you're doing God's will, it's going to be successful. There's obstacles that will arise that have to be overcome, but if it's truly what God wants, then it will flourish. And for me personally, I'm all for it. I hope you guys have an amazing year, because the year is getting ready to start, especially in our area. Are you guys going to follow the local public school calendar-ish?
It's similar.
Okay, because I would say that's August for us. That's the first week of August.
We don't have to start soon. Quite as early, but
they threw me for a loop this year when I saw the schedule, because last year was the middle of August, and I was like, oh yeah, we still got another 2 months of summer left. Nope. So now I'm like, well, okay. I don't know what to do at this point. So school supplies, that's a mess. How are you guys doing in that regard? As far as, there's obviously a huge barrier to gathering supplies and getting everything you need to have an influx of children come in. So how does that look?
So for our school itself, we've relied heavily on a ton of community support, people who just want to really just bless us, from big donations to small donations. Everything is important, so there's really not a big or a small, but they're meeting all the marks that we need, and so it's just really cool to see a community come behind that. And then our families have been super supportive, and kids are super excited. Some of these kids are kids who have been homeschooled, and so they're a school supply list, and they're super excited to go out and get their pencils or whatever. So it's just really cool to see that.
Homeschooling ours, it's been important for us to keep them socialized.
Right.
They get a lot of that here.
Absolutely.
Through the co-op. That's one of the good things about the public schools. Those kids go and learn how to socialize.
Yeah.
So it's cool that the kids are excited about it.
Yeah.
Now y'all are remodeling or have been remodeling.
Yeah, we've been remodeling a building. It's still happening. We're almost to the end, so that's super
we're coming
exciting.
down to the wire.
I know, it is.
I mean, we're nearly through July. School starts in August, and I'm not trying to put any pressure on you. I'm just.
Oh no, I feel the
Yeah,
pressure.
you already
No
feel the
pressure.
pressure. I'm just stating
You
the
can
obvious
pressure
here.
your guest next week, as he is also my construction guy. So you can put the pressure on him next week. But this is what we did. Like we're gonna give it all we got to make it happen.
Speaking of your building, how was the process of finding where you were going to hold class?
Right.
You know, because obviously we're trying to keep it separate from the church.
Mm-hmm.
So how was that journey? Because
So that was very much God was in that whole thing. To build a building is obviously super expensive. We're starting out as a nonprofit. We don't have that kind of money. So we had to look at our options. I knew for a fact I wanted to keep it in our community because I just think there's something special about this community and that small town feel. So I was very adamant that it had to stay in this area. So we had a couple of different thoughts and different ideas. Basically, they all fell through. And so we're sitting there going, what are we going to do? Like, what are we going to do? And another church was like, well, we might can house you in here or whatever. We're like, we don't really want to, I was just dead set. I don't want to be tied to a church.
Sure.
But if we have to do it, we have to do it. And then all of a sudden, someone was like, there's an abandoned church building on this road. And I was like, really? So, small turn of events. The church is actually it's abandoned. No one's like in there right now, but the sister church now owns it, and the sister church that owns it just so happens to be the church that Jordan was saved at. So I was like, can you call them, the people that took you to church that made sure that you are where you are today, can you
Sure.
call them and just see? And it all worked about like full circle. We're working with the church that he first got taken to because a family cared enough to pick him up and to take him to church, and here it is full circle. The building was sitting empty, and so we're able to lease that for now, and that's going to get us started. And it's
Awesome.
like the best location possible because there's outdoor space, and a lot of our other options didn't have that, and so it feels right.
It's a good spot.
Yeah.
It's a good spot. I do. I drive by frequently because the dollar store's right around the corner,
It
which is
is.
great and helpful.
I love how all that came together.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
I've left them speechless.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I'm sitting here racking my brain like, what can I ask her now?
Yeah.
Oh, I've got it.
Go ahead.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
This is not going to be profound, even though it just come across that way.
We'll take what we can get.
I think I know the answer to this because really, I mean, it's been the whole theme of all of this. But if you can maybe wrap it all up
Okay.
on top of all of these things, the being the pastor's wife, full-time gig, probably mentally for sure, of doing this school stuff, but raising 4 kids all while doing it.
It's very interesting.
How do you find balance, Haley?
Well, I'm not the greatest at it. I really am not the greatest at it, but I am trying to do better. And I think that is so important. Sometimes as a pastor's wife, I feel like I'm put on this pedestal, and like not so much like a pedestal of like how great is she, but like I can't connect to her. I am just like everyone else. I deal with my own things. I yell too much at my kids, and I have anxiety, and I have all of these things, just like the person sitting in the pew beside me. And so that is probably one of my pet peeves, that people don't think that they can relate to me because I'm a pastor's wife. No, I have sin in my life, and I have traveled roads that I wish that I hadn't. But I'm a human, just like the rest of you. And so it is not easy by any means, but honestly, like, I can't imagine it any other way. Like, I can't imagine doing life any other way. Like, it just, in the chaos of 4 kids and, serving at church and serving at the new school, it's just what makes sense. And I have this great, like, thought inside of me, like, this feeling inside of me that ultimately Jesus Christ gave his life for me. Like, he died on the cross, and he saved me from my sins. And he has been so faithful to me. I told y'all this earlier. So faithful to me through my parents' divorce and through my stepdad's death and through miscarriage and through, growing our family. Like, he has been so faithful to me that I can't imagine not doing it. Like, it's probably a problem because I truly can't imagine just sitting back and not doing something. The joy that he gives from that, yeah, sure. There are times when I'm tired. There are times when I have to say I need rest. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. But to be a part of a place like where I am in life now, to also see that become contagious and other people hop on board, like, that's what it's all about. Like, and if we all are going in the same direction, then think of what we can do for Christ. Like that, and that's what drives me. If I take a step back, though, then that's going to give someone else a reason to say, she stepped back, so I can step back. So I use this line, I talk about it with my women and women's Bible study, that I'm marching on with the Lord, and you can come with me or you can stay behind. I'd love for everybody to come with me. Am I going to do it perfectly? Absolutely not. I'm going to need lots of grace along the way. But that's where I want to be. That's where I want to be. And he just kind of works the rest of it out. And I just pray that my kids grow up to forgive me and see the good stuff and not all of the bad stuff.
Wow, that was inspirational. You said something there, and I've seen it a lot in different churches. It's a natural thing for people to put the pastor and his wife on a pedestal mm-hmm. because they're leaving the church. I feel like here, and that probably happens a little bit, I'm sure you feel it mm-hmm. obviously, mm-hmm. but I feel like here, and I've never been a part of a congregation like this, nearly everybody is doing something. Mm-hmm. Everyone has a heart to serve. Mm-hmm. And it is one of the most incredible things I've ever seen.
And if they're not, like, I don't know how you can't want to be a part of it.
It's contagious.
To see what is happening and to know that you can, each of us stepping together can just make it better and better.
What I love most about where we're at, and I tell people this a lot when I'm inviting men to our Tuesday night men's Bible study, is they're just dudes like me and you. Mm-hmm. They will tell you who they used to be mm-hmm. and tell you the things they used to do, but you will see firsthand who Jesus has made them today. Mm-hmm. And it's not a show like you feel you come across in some churches. Mm-hmm. It's legitimate. It's not, there's no looking down your nose at anybody. We're all equals. We're all in this world together to serve a common purpose of sowing seed and spreading the gospel of Jesus Christ. And that is, for the most part, everybody here's mission. Mm-hmm. It's infectious. Mm-hmm. When the Lord takes over and starts moving and doing stuff, man, if you don't feel that in your bones to want to get up and move and do stuff, then you need to check your pulse. Right. He is alive and well, not just here, but other places near us. Mm-hmm. He is alive and well moving across this country. There's been a revival going on. We don't see it on the news. We see all the bad stuff on the news. Right. And not just here, but all over the world. And like we talked a little bit about last week, there's a lot going on in this country that we could talk about. There's a lot going on in the world that we could talk about. On the flip side of that, there's so much good, even on the local level, like some of what we've talked about this morning, about this school and what's going on here. This isn't the only place this kind of stuff is happening. This type of fire that can only come from the Lord. This is not the only place it's happening right now. It's all over the place. So we hope it encourages you. I mean,
yeah, absolutely. I want to say thank you to Miss Haley for being our first guest on the show.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank y'all for having me.
This has been a blast.
It absolutely has.
I feel like we could talk the rest of the afternoon.
No.
If you're listening to this, thank you. If you listened to last week's, thank you for that.
Absolutely.
It was our first episode, and the Lord is already using it. I mean, we had people all over this country, from Florida to Oregon, right?
Yes, Florida to Oregon, based on the analytics.
Listen to last week's first episode. That is mind-blowing and makes me super uncomfortable, and I know it does you. But how fun to be a part of something that the Lord is using. We're here for it. Again, Haley, thank you so much for being on.
Y'all.
It means a lot to us.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Until next time.
Until next time.